This is your Filipino radio experience in Las Vegas. PHLV Radio. PHLV Radio.
From the Asian Community Development Council, this is Family in Focus, Mondays at 12 noon on PHLV Radio.
Hi, everyone. Happy Monday. Welcome back to this episode of Family in Focus on Monday, August 23rd. We're live here in Las Vegas, where we have actually our guests joining in from all over the country for this episode. Again, this is the Family in Focus podcast. You have not listened in before. This is broadcast out of PHLV radio station here in Las Vegas, Nevada, presented by the Asian Community Development Council, a nonprofit here in Las Vegas, Nevada, and Reno to improve the well-being education of the Asian Pacific Islander and other ethnic communities in Nevada. So we're glad to have you with us here today with our guests coming in from all over the country. They're all representing small businesses across the country owned and operated by Asian Americans. So I'm so proud to have them with us to talk about how things are going. It's been a tough year and a half because of the pandemic. So we'll hear from them personally what kind of advice they have for other small business owners, what they've learned over the years. So let's start with our first guest. We have from here in Las Vegas, Nevada, Colin Fukunaga. If you probably have seen him around, he's big in media around here as well. He's joining us from one of his burger trucks right here in town. He's the owner of Fuku Burger, so we'll hear his story coming up in just a bit. We also have Max Borthwick joining us from Seattle, Washington. Max is the founder, owner of Thai Fusions, which they've had some really great news coming up. I'll let him talk about his affiliation and talk with Target. So we'll hear from that story. And also, we have two amazing ladies from two parts of the country. We have Christy Inawong Thornton. She's joining us from Raleigh, right? You're Raleigh? Charlotte, right. And Charlotte. And we also have her partner, Bea Aurelio Seguin, Tuk Tuk Box. They're co-partners, founders, and she's actually in San Francisco. So this goes to show with their business, they're actually all over the country. We'll let them talk about what they do, and they some really great things, especially for the community as well. So we're going to bring them in just a minute. But first, we're talking about small businesses in this country. And as you know, they've been really impacted by the pandemic. You know, a lot of places, whether it be restaurants or other businesses have had to shut down or have to, kind of deal with all the financial challenges and also the health challenges of the pandemic. But other businesses as well, even if they're just, not as brick and mortar stores, they're still affected in some way. So I'm going to have Colin start here. And Colin, talk to us a little bit about Fuku Burger. If people haven't had it, they don't live here in Las Vegas. Talk to me about the history of this. And it's so fitting that you're in your Fuku truck because that's where you started as a business, right? Uh-oh. Yeah, go ahead. Can you... Oh, where'd you go? Can you hear us? We might have to come back to our friend Colin. Truck technicality. So let's start with Max. Max, can you hear us?
Sorry about that. Yeah, I can.
Yeah, no worries. Keep your mics on, everyone, just in case I come to you last minute. But Max, tell us a little bit about Thai Fusions. You're a small business, and you started in Seattle. Well, actually, you were in a restaurant with your mom, right? And you started as a restaurant.
Yes, that's correct. So my mom and I started a restaurant in 2001 called Toy, named after my mom. And so we kind of realized from that experience that there wasn't any representation of real, authentic, like Thai, any really the Asian category in markets just wasn't built out at the time. So we saw the opportunity, and that's where we started Thai Fusions. And so I run that with my family and and we make them here in Seattle, Washington, and
And these are like sauces and curries. Like you have peanut sauce, Penang, you have vegan sauces now. And I love your sweet onion chili jam we're showing right now. So these are just, ready to eat, kind of ready to make sauces that are very authentic, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, just reheat and serve. I mean, they're loaded with all the authentic Thai ingredients, and they're all natural, as shelf stable products that they're great simmer sauces. The peanut sauce great for almost like a Thai condiment, burger condiment. Goes great on burgers and saute. So yeah, it's fantastic.
That's great. And I know you sell in stores, you've been in retail stores, but also you sell online as well. So talk to me just briefly about this past year. What's been the biggest challenge for you as a small business, Max?
Yeah, so I think, the toughest challenge that we've kind of faced this year has been, business as an essential business, it has been up for us, and the opportunity has been great because they've been coming out of the woodworks, but also the cost of goods have been going up, labor shortages is there, and so there's more business, but it seems like we're scrambling to work harder to fill that business at the same time our costs are going up. So that's been a challenge.
Yeah. And we'll come back and talk about it because you had a great opportunity come in just the last few weeks. So we're going to talk about that. But let's first get back to Colin. Colin, can you hear us? Are you back?
Yeah, sorry about that.
You're back.
The battery ran out of my earpiece.
No worries. I'm glad you're here. So you started, and I love your small business story because you really started small. You started as a burger truck, right? And you expanded since then. So talk to us a little, just briefly, your history.
So I was in corporate restaurant for 95 to 2008. I was an operating partner for a big. Well, I started as a mom and pop company and ended up getting so big that it became publicly traded. And then that's when the fun, I always say, stops because it's a numbers game after that. You're bottom line feeder, and there's a huge force from art and a huge force from business. They always butt heads, and you have to have a balance of both. And when it's unequal, then something gets lost in translation. So I ended up getting let go right as the I was gonna say the pandemic, as the financial crisis happened in 2008, and it was a crazy year because I ruptured my Achilles. I got divorced. I lost my job, almost lost my house. And the economy was crashing fast. So it was almost laughable because of how bad the situation was. But I knew that it couldn't get worse. So I had been, doing what a lot of people were doing in Vegas and dabbling into, the house, being a real estate speculator, and I got in at the top of the bubble. And I knew that was probably a bad idea. So when that collapsed, it exacerbated my scenario. So I just remember being a political science and history major that you go with history. You don't go with what your friends tell you, and you don't go with what people tell you. So I regrouped, and I was like, I'm not going to make the same mistake. Actually, I'm going to go against the grain, and I'm going to start a business when everyone else is retreating. So it ended up being the best thing I've ever done. Yeah. As far as business, and in fact, during this crisis, I tripled up. So I opened up the stadium, put in LOI for another restaurant and the bar. So so far it's working out really well.
And that's what's been, what I want to talk about here. All you guys have found a way to really kind of become resilient, and as Colin was saying, he started as a truck, went on to open a few burger shops in town. Now they're just got inside Allegiant Stadium where the Raiders are playing now in Las Vegas, and more future projects along the way, as you can see his truck right there inside of Allegiant Stadium. So, great things are happening, but obviously, Colin has been through tough times leading up to opening the business. And I know this past year and a half, there have been other challenges that you've gone through, Colin, but we'll have you come back and talk a little bit about that. But let's introduce our next guests, Christy and Bea, and they're the co-founders and owners of Tuk Box. And if you haven't heard this is a great company. And Tuk Tuk, I love the name because I'm from Thailand originally, and we had Tuk Tuks everywhere there. So, Christy, I'll let you start and just kind of give us briefly. People have never heard of Tuk Box, and you started this business during the pandemic in 2020, right?
Yeah, kind of like Colin was saying, when everyone else was retreating and kind of the world was shutting down, we did a crazy idea and started a business. And the kind of impetus for it was I was living and working in Bangkok, Thailand, with a lot of families who were being displaced, a lot of asylum seeking refugee families, and started a food education nonprofit. And so I did that up until the pandemic, and kind of all of our programming had to shut down. So one of the ways that we were raising money previously was through Thai cooking classes and market tours. And because we couldn't meet in person anymore, past customers and friends still wanted access to all of this, all the yummy Thai food. So during the pandemic, I started sending out like little Asian goodie kits to friends and past clients. And Bea said, hey, why don't we make this a subscription box model? It would be more sustainable.
Right.
And it's a way that we can continue to raise awareness and funds for the families in Bangkok. So we are a specialty, Southeast Asian specialty food retailer and subscription box company.
And I love it. We're seeing pictures of you and Bea, you know, your company, and women owned, which I love. And you started this. And Bea, you're joining us from San Francisco. Did you ever think that you would ever get into this food box subscription business as you're growing up and thinking about what you're doing for a living?
No, actually, I didn't actually think I would go into business. So I have a master's in public health as well as completing a master's in global health. And so I found that when I go and advocate in policy, since I specifically work in policy, I found that Southeast Asian communities were included in a lot of conversations, and a lot of the policies that were drafted up did not focus on our community. And so when Christy and I were kind of talking about, how else can we create Courageous Kitchen to be sustainable? I also drew up the question of like, if people don't know our food, how would they actually know what our community is going through, who our community is, and where we are? And so that's kind of the expansion of like Tuk Tuk Box and how that led through my education and my academic experience. But I didn't think I would start a business, especially during a pandemic.
Right? I mean, and what's been, would you say, the biggest challenge for you in this past year is, with the pandemic and everything? I mean, you've managed to kind of get this through and still going at it, but what's been the biggest challenge for you guys?
I think for us, part of it is Christy and I both have, grassroots and nonprofit backgrounds. So us being thrusted into the business world is a little bit different, and we're kind of like learning how to navigate that. And I think access to capital is something that we're kind of learning and growing through and finding out, the nuances between that.
Yeah. Well, let me bring Colin back, and these ladies, they just, they took the leap. They started this business just last year. You've been in it quite a few years, but the challenges of starting this business, especially as Asian Americans. I'm sure that resonated, their story about wanting to represent the Asian American community. What's your response to that? What advice could you give?
First of all, I think it's super inspiring. I love hearing these stories. It reminds me of like my year one. Sorry, what was the question again? What do you want me to know?
Well, I guess, they say the biggest challenge was access to capital and getting that support.
Yeah.
And you're obviously growing. You're opening up even more, but I'm sure you've been through those challenges yourself.
I think when you, it was a world when back then in 2010, it was there was like the advent of social media, and I got onto I learned how to do Twitter, and I used to tell people where we're going to be on Twitter. It was, all this free social media back in the days was integral to our expansion, and especially to the demographic that I was headed for, which is the 18 to 35. That was really supporting the food truck industry at the time. Capital, I mean, you just figure it out. You do it smaller, and then you just add on. And I was lucky because, with the social media platform, it just got our name out there really quick. And being in an industry where it was just in its fledgling stages in Las Vegas, we got all the attention. We're on the cover of the Las Vegas Weekly, which is an awesome publication here that supports local businesses.
Yeah.
We got on Food Network, Travel Channel. We're in LA Times, New York Times, and it was crazy. I couldn't believe how much free publicity you were getting. So it has a lot to do with timing, and then strategically putting your stuff in scenarios where you're gonna be able to amplify your what you're doing.
And you bring up a good point, Colin,
but-
just about social media, because whether you're big or small business, and Christy, maybe you can, because you've really worked, especially with your Spread Asian Joy campaign that you have now, you've really gotten out there on social media, and that's really gotten the word out in many ways about your business as well, right?
Yeah, we're trying. I'm a little bit too old for like TikTok. So I'm trying on Instagram, and that's also a challenge, but that's really organically how we've grown. We've put a couple dollars into Facebook ads and Instagram ads, but word of mouth has been the biggest thing for us. And I mean, in just this year, we've gotten quite a bit of a following, but also having, like Colin said, a couple of press releases and some interviews like this. So thank you for having us on. And then also teaming up with some influencers. And that has been probably the biggest aid for us, because we just started the business with our own funds and we didn't have outside investors.
Yeah, and I think it's like Colin said, it's inspiring to hear these stories, because first of all, this past year and a half, it's been so tough, but we're hearing people just kind of bouncing back and getting great opportunities and working off it. And Max, I want you to bring here, because I think your story, what you just went through with the Target Takeoff program, was amazing, because you started as a small business in Seattle, and now talk to us about that collaboration and what that program was all about, especially in helping small and minority businesses kind of get some attention. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. The Target Takeoff program it's basically an accelerator program where a bunch of emerging brands that they've identified, and maybe some of the underserved categories in the retail space. There were 10, 11 emerging businesses that they took on, and we were so excited to get involved with it, because it just gave us an opportunity to learn and learn exactly how to pitch to the target buyer. But overall, the education, the programming was fantastic. The ability to talk to buyers, the VPs of the company, it was just, they basically just opened it up and said, hey, there wasn't a commitment on their end, but the education involved in the process,
And I really like, Target is not the only company. There are other, big names out there, big companies, corporations that started these accelerator programs, to get smaller business, Asian American, Latino, African American businesses, to make sure that they're heard of and people know these small businesses. And Colin, I know you've worked with, both big corporations here in Las Vegas and smaller investors as well. What's kind of the secret of getting the people's attention and getting people to say, hey, we matter, we're unique, we bring something to the table?
I think it's just consistency. And also, I think you just have to have a passion for it. I don't see it as work. I think it is something that I'm really passionate about this, but it's easy it's becoming easier now, because so many groups are asking me to do things, and it's just it's a huge honor to get involved with things that I was already interested in, and to have them ask to collaborate. It does so many nice things that to amplify our business and our name brands, that it's just multiplying. It's just coming at us 100 miles an hour right now.
Yeah. And talk to me about given you're in the restaurant business, that perspective, we've heard so much about the pandemic affecting people coming back to work, getting people hired and staying in the stores. Tell me about what's unique to you, some of the, good things and more of the challenging things that you saw in the past year and a half.
One of the best things that has ever been bestowed upon me is my mentors in the game have always encouraged a healthy work environment, whether it be a pandemic or not. It's the building block. If you start with that as your building block, the rest is pretty easy. Retaining employees is our employee retention. I think is one of the things that big business, especially corporate, publicly traded companies, they don't have a line item for that. So it really doesn't matter to them as much. But I feel like it's the part of our business that really truly makes us successful. Our coworkers stick around. The industry standard for fast casual or fast food, which we could be considered, is like 6 to 8 months. And my operations manager, Elise, she started with me at 19. She's been with me for almost 8 years, and she's she's our operations director now. And to see her, achieve a level of success that she has, it kind of like as the Christmas tree goes down, and to the other employees, to see that there's a chance to move up in the game, and it's helped us, not only retain people, but like happy employees make happy guests. Right, and I haven't had a huge problem with the employee side of attracting or keeping employees. It's just attracting new employees with the stimulus package. It's allowing a lot more people to stay home. Yeah. But I feel like it's going to end in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an interesting time for small businesses for sure. But Bea, maybe I'll have you jump in here just, as a woman, Asian American, just been, especially we've heard all these, discrimination, all these things over, even before the pandemic started. Are any of those things kind of worked against you opening this business, or you felt like it has been kind of a plus for you being Asian American and minority? And what's kind of been your experience?
I think for this year especially, it's been kind of, I think for me, a little bit challenging in the way of like thinking about the community and what's going on in the outside world, outside of, Tuk Tuk Box, right? With all the anti-Asian sentiment and, the racism that's coming into light, even though we know that it's always been there. A lot of folks have been highlighting it in media and things like that. So for me, I think it hasn't been necessarily like a stopping point, but I think more inspiration for me to want to bring our community to the table and talk about us more. A lot of the things that have been happening in the news media and things that have been highlighted around anti-Asian sentiment really hits home for a lot of us. Yeah. I even had my uncle was held at gunpoint in Oakland. So things like that, it's like you have to continue to think about like, what do we represent and what do we bring to the table for the community through our business. And one of the things that Chrissy and I are doing to, I guess, challenge the anti-Asian sentiment is our Spread Asian Joy campaign. So I think that is kind of like my way to like push forward being an Asian American woman and daughter of immigrants.
And we're seeing you wearing your T-shirt right there, Spread Asian Joy. And it's great because, the proceeds go to help a really great nonprofit in the Sacramento area as well, right, Bea?
Yes, the proceeds go to My Sister's House. It is a nonprofit in Sacramento that focuses on Asian and Pacific Islander women who are survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, as well as human trafficking. And so their programming is focused on both like a shelter piece, but also re-education in the sense of like teaching skills development so that women could be placed in new homes and can escape from their situations.
And that's great. And Christy, I know you're starting, this is your 1 year anniversary for Tuk Tuk Box is coming up next week. So that's big. Congratulations. Big milestone. But thinking about going into next year as a small business owner, as someone, as women, what's kind of going in through you right now to say, this is what I need to do right now to make sure that we keep growing and we keep staying strong and staying on the mission?
One of the things I think we're hoping for is that we can meet in person again, because that's a big part of, attracting people, but also just on a personal level of having that connection, having that network of other friends, of partners, because everything has just shifted to virtual. We also realize that, maybe not everyone has access to do things online. So while we've been really successful with live programming and kind of importing and exporting across the country, we really hope to meet in person, to do some events, to do some dinners, to continue the conversations around food, but also through deeper issues. That involves, many things. So like community outreach and education, like Bea mentioned, but also expanding our merchandise line, and then possibly, working with more small farmers and local businesses like Max's to create something for people that they want when you can go outside again, right? Maybe the subscription box model isn't going to be as successful when the pandemic is over. So how can we create an experience that can last in person, but also that is worthwhile for people.
And I think you bring up a good point of being strategic, thinking about what's working now, but obviously you have to think about what's next, right? And what's going to be coming up and how do you keep growing? And Max, I know you just went through the Target Takeoff Accelerator program, and that big part of it is that education factor, right? For small businesses to think big, but also to think big in a way that it will be efficient and it will work. So what do you think was the biggest lesson you took away that maybe you can share with other small business owners out there?
I think, the biggest lesson that I can take away from that is, each of our brands has a unique story. Mm-hmm. And so the heavier you lean in on that story, the uniqueness of who you are and sticking to that, I think resonates with pretty much everybody. The authenticity and what that speaks to is really important these days, and we've been really fortunate that our story has kind of resonated, and just really fortunate to be a part of that program as well.
Yeah, and I would think like building connections and relationships, big or small, I think those are really important as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Colin, and I know we're talking about your growth. Talk to us about what's happening, because you have even more. Now you're an Allegiant. You have even more businesses opening up soon, right? For Fugu Burger.
Yeah, we're opening another location on the southeast part of town. We're getting a lot of people requesting us to be in the Henderson, Green Valley area. So it'd be awesome to just keep a string along the 215 here in town.
That's awesome. And it's great because all the people here, we're trying to get Christy and Bea and Max to come to Vegas. And I think your burgers will be a big draw.
We should do a collaboration.
Yes, please.
Wish we could send burgers in the mail, right, Christy, in your tuk-tuk box.
I would love to do a krapao burger.
That's krapao, yeah. Yes. We love, we're Thai food lovers over here, so I get it. Hey, Colin, that's a good idea for you. Maybe that should launch your next restaurant, Krapao Burger.
Well, we do burger specials, so Thai, Lao. It's not a far reach.
Cool.
That's awesome.
Let's do it.
No, I love the innovation and. Colin, what's your advice for other small business owners out there? What do you want to take, for them, maybe for some people who are just thinking of starting something, even though it's just really tough time, what's your advice for them?
I tell my daughter that, she's in her first semester of college right now.
Yeah.
And, she's like, oh, everyone's asking me what my major is. And I'm like, you're probably not going to use it. So it doesn't matter unless you're super specialized. Do a business that you are in love with. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's hard to, it's easy to say that, but I've tried to get away from the restaurant business so many times because I thought, I needed to wear a suit and tie and, it would make me feel more important. But, my roots, my grandfather had a sandwich shop when I was little, and I always gravitated back towards it in high school, in college, after college. And I just came to the realization that I really love the intersection of people and feeding them, and humbled by the fact that people will allow me to feed them. And, with something I made with my hands, they're going to put inside of their body. It's such an amazing experience for me. And I don't take that for granted. But I use the analogy. I have this game that I've been playing forever on my phone called Candy Crush. And you're never going to get anywhere, but it's just I keep on doing it. And it's I don't know, it's fascinating to me to just keep on doing it. That's the way I feel about my restaurant. My restaurant job is that it's not bothering. It's just like I do it 24/7. My phone number is on the website. I take calls about problems and ordering problems, and I love it. It's not laborious to me. It's something that I seek. I like solving problems. I like the human intersection of this business, and that's the advice that I give: is find something that you love. And it's a cliche, but I'm not working. I feel guilty sometimes for taking money for what I'm doing. Not that guilty.
Well, you know what? Keep crushing it because you're doing great, and all of you as well. Max, Christy, Bea. I wish we have more time because you all have such great, amazing stories and amazing food that you're all offering. I didn't mean for the show to be all food oriented, but you know what? We love food, so why don't we make it all about food? I think it's great. Thank you so much for all of you to come on and share your stories and very inspiring stories. I'm so glad that you're growing despite the challenges that we're all facing right now. So thank you so much, and thank you everyone for listening to this episode of Family in Focus. Tune in every Monday at noon Pacific Time. The show presented by the Asian Community Development Council. Check them out on acdcnv.org for the services they offer for the AAPI community here in Nevada and beyond. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.